Now, Volkswagen, we talked about this when this news broke. Unions are striking in Germany because Volkswagen, which is also facing challenges like Stellantis, has decided to close up a number of factories because of rising costs and the revenues are not meeting up. So Volkswagen, like Stellantis, not selling enough cars, and they have decided to cut costs, close down factories and fire workers, and they are facing a strike. So again, more news from the global automobile, and more automobile news. Elon Musk, his pay package, his $56.5 billion pay package has been rejected a second time. Breaking news in the early hours of this morning by the judge in Delaware. Basically, some shareholders came forward and said that this pay package is too large and that Elon Musk has an outsized influence on the board. The board basically capitulated to his demands. Here's what the judge said. This is Judge Kathleen St. John McCormick of the Delaware Chancery Court. She said in a part of her 101-page decision, says there were undoubtedly a range of healthy amounts that the board could have decided to pay Elon Musk. Instead, the board capitulated to Musk's terms. He tweeted on X, it's corruption, and then I understand Tesla is going to appeal. Now, she rejected it the first time. The board came back. They voted on it again. She has rejected it a second time. So basically, the board is not independent. Let's get to Eronmosele Aziba. He's a financial consultant joining us live from Coventry. Eronmosele, good morning to you. Great to have you on the show. So much to discuss this morning. I want to quickly start with the Asian markets. How have you assessed the climb in the indexes in Asia this morning?
The Asian market, it's been largely positive sentiment with the data that we saw earlier with the purchasing managers index numbers coming out showing an expansion in manufacturing industry was a positive indication for expansion in the economy. And the fact that Asian markets are also tracking what is going on in the US markets with the expected data releases this week. We're expecting US job numbers to come in. We're also expecting comments from some of the members of the Fed ahead of their next meeting. And all these sort of contributed to the positive sentiment that we saw in the Asian. And even like just related specifically to the market for some of the blue chip companies that are semiconductor producers, we saw significant interest in those shares yesterday as well in Taiwan, in China, and in the Japanese market as well. And this sort of contributed to the overall positive sentiment that we saw there.
What do you make of what's going on with Volkswagen and with Stellantis?
I think the broader picture is looking at the EV market, and what we're starting to see is the price of decarbonization. We know that for a lot of the European producers, they've come up with plans to, exit, to completely shift towards production of electric vehicles with all their sustainability plans. But with that comes changes to models. It comes the need for significant investment. And with some of the challenges that we've seen in the economy, also with pressures on consumer spending, the financial performance of these companies has not necessarily been that great. And we've also seen a lot of competition come in from China, where these EVs are able to be produced at a lower cost. And we're seeing a lot of demand shift towards those Chinese markets. So some of these legacy car producers that have been around for 50, even 80 years, we started to see them lose significant market share. And the resultant impact of that could then be job losses. And, for instance, in Germany, where they have quite strict labor laws, it's not that easy for a company to just close a factory or just say they're cutting staff. And that's one of the reasons why we've seen news come out of Germany that Volkswagen staff are planning to go on strike. So essentially what we are seeing in that market is just the challenge of transitioning to the electric vehicle space that most of these companies have announced.
You mentioned China. I think we've got three charts of some data from the New York Times. One, China's exports compared to other players from the US, Europe, and Japan and other countries. And yeah, so there it is. I mean, it is just an absolute spike in terms of how much more China is exporting compared to other countries, just completely taking the lead. Also, production capacity of China versus the sales. Production capacity is way more than sales. You're seeing that, that's why they have the excess capacity that I think you mentioned. And then you mentioned the cost. The cost of making an EV for BYD versus a Volkswagen, the costs are completely different. So do you think this dominance continues for China in terms of the automobile space as we move forward?
I think definitely, because one of the major factors that is driving it, like you just mentioned, is costs. When you think about it, in the production of an EV, China controls across the entire value chain, from the production of lithium batteries to the production of parts for the car. China has access to the entire value chain, which is one of the reasons why they can produce at a cheaper rate, or produce more efficiently than some of the other established players that produce in other countries. And it comes down to the consumers at the end of the day. What can your pocket carry? What is in terms of the cost and benefits, right? That's what consumers are going to be looking at. Are you going to focus on the more established brands and just purchase their products for the brand perception that comes with it, or are you looking at what is more functional for you in terms of being able to save cost? But also, just talking about China, they didn't just all of a sudden spring up from nowhere. For almost the last 2 decades, we've seen deliberate investments that have gone into that space. Almost $230 billion, has been invested in that space. And at the moment, they currently have almost double the actual capacity. They have capacity that is about double the existing demand at the moment. So it means they are currently well positioned, like even into the future, for when we might see significant demand start to pick up. They already have that excess capacity to be able to meet that demand. And we've seen a lot of exports from China into other markets, such that China has become one of the major exporters globally.
We'll see whether tariffs can blunt that. Finally, Eronmosele, I wanted to talk to you about India's GDP figures. Just wanted to get your quick take. 5.4% for the second quarter, I believe, kind of underperforming estimates. What were your thoughts on the figures that we got from out of India?
I think there was a mixed bag when you even look at the performance of sectors. So sectors like manufacturing, mining, and quarrying suffered significant blows in the quarter that just passed, but it seems like there's a lot of optimism with the third quarter that is coming, with the expectation of the harvest season starting. But one of the major factors that also affected was lower government spending, the fact that they're also seeing inflation levels above their monetary authorities benchmark of about 6%, with inflation rate at about 6.2%. So what everyone is looking to now is how the monetary authorities can tackle these inflationary pressures to ensure that they're still able to drive growth in the coming quarters.
Eronmosele Aziba, financial consultant, joining us from Commentary. Always a pleasure talking Asian markets and everything coming from Asia with you. Thank you so much for your time.